Yeah, it was funny because going into that hunt, I told you to be prepared for 70 degrees above down to minus 20 below zero.
Mhm.
And first day we
Yep.
were there, we were hunting antelope and it was
That
67 degrees.
first time. Yep. Yep. Hunting in t-shirts, and
Yeah.
then the very next day we woke up to what is like 4 to 6 inches of snow, and
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
negative 20 degrees. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It started snowing and then it snowed like a foot of snow on us that day. And then the next morning we woke up and like the
On that
tent is
day. Yep.
like collapsing and it's like 15 below zero and uh it was super fun. But
Refuel
we,
the wood
we
stove every 15 minutes.
oh my gosh, that was brutal. That tent was so bad. Like we had one of those Cabela's Alakneck
It
big
was bad.
giant tents, and it was like 20 feet long, but like no insulation whatsoever, and so it was it was a joke. It was a joke, and that fabric doesn't breathe at all, and so
The ash
we're just
from the
like
wood stove. Yep.
was yeah, it was like punching
The
holes in
ash
the
from the wood
tent.
stove just burned a bunch of holes.
Yeah,
Awful. Awful.
and then just the condensation from
But
our
it wasn't our
breath
tent.
inside the tent. No, exactly. The condensation from our breath on the inside of the tent just like forming icicles. Then when it would heat up a little bit, they would just drip down on us, and just like so miserable and cold and wet and frozen and smoked out and and then amazingly, like he came back hunting with me the next year. Yep.
Well,
That's
it gets cold in Wisconsin too, so used to that
certainly.
part. But usually we're in a camp or a cabin or something like that. So the whole
Yeah.
tent camping, wall tent camping with the wood stove and all that was a totally new experience for me, and it was obviously something that I'm never going to forget. Just each year to year, every year has obviously something new that happens, and it's just what's going to happen next, kind of being out in the middle
Yeah.
of nowhere, and literally out in the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of Wisconsin. Oh, it's the middle of nowhere, but there's a city like, I don't know, 50 miles maybe.
Yeah.
Where we were, I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
You don't
it's
really
a totally different
understand
world.
remote. Yeah. You don't understand remote until
Mm-hmm.
you get to a situation like that where it's just like there's no just going to the store to get what you need. Like that's not an option. That's not an option. You have to be really
Oh,
prepared going into this.
a knife.
Yeah.
Well, you're screwed.
Sorry, bud. You should have planned better.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Awesome. It's quite an experience. So it was fun. Like it was my dad. In the first video I talked about what a joy it was for my dad to introduce new people to hunting, and I find myself in that same kind of situation. Like it's so cool to bring people out, and you've been hunting for a long time and you've killed some deer, and you've done that whole thing, but Montana's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different type of hunting. So it's really really fun
Mhm.
for me to bring people out. And I've got a buddy from Missouri coming out this year. Him and one of his buddies are coming out, and we've been I've been trying to get him out for 5 years probably, and so we finally made it happen this year. And we were talking, like, I almost got Joe to come out this year too, and yeah, that almost happened, but at the last minute it didn't. So maybe next year, we'll just see what happens. But it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing to, we talk about it all the time, and then to get out there and see it, like, that's a whole different thing. So that's cool.
Right. Like I'm so used to stand hunting or blind hunting, or you only kind of walk around when you're cold. That's pretty much it. Obviously, there's a little bit of strategy that goes into Wisconsin hunting, where looking for sign in the trails and tracking, and if you got a food plot, fine. If you got different things, mineral blocks or whatever on your own property, that's fine. But I remember, I think it was the first or second time I went bow hunting with you in Wisconsin, in southwestern Wisconsin, and it was late bow season. It was like -10 degrees, awful. We both packed our blinds out there. I got that like 10 million candle power spotlight from Gainer Mountain or something.
Yeah.
Thought it was a great thing to have. Stupid.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
so we hike out there and we set our blinds up, and it's whatever. And we're sitting. We got radios or whatever. We're sitting and not seeing anything, of course. And all of a sudden I'm like, all right, I'm cold. I'm just gonna get out of my blind here and stand up, and I can see your blind, and I look over, and you're not in it, and lo and behold, you're like 10 miles away, and I'm like, how, you're a bigger guy, but how did you go so far so fast? And that part of the state's hilly and whatever, and I'm trying to catch up to you, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm dying, but you're just going through it, because I didn't understand. But then the first year being in Montana, I started to understand, because you walk, and you walk, and you walk, and you walk, and obviously you glass, and you do the things that you need to do, but you're walking the whole time. So that's just a completely different style of hunting, from one year to the next. That was, it's kind of a lot more fun to be in Montana, and just the openness of it.
Yeah.
And, you see a herd 300 yards away, 400 yards away. Now it's coming up with a plan to not spook these antelope so that they just run and run and run and run. So you're not going directly at these antelope that are 400 yards away. Now you got to go 800 yards to some other location so that you can get to them. So it's just it's not a sitting and waiting. Some of it can be, but it's just a totally different experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy involved, certainly. And especially with antelope, because you can see them from such far distances. Like, I mean, it's so much fun, like, seeing a herd and then coming up with a plan, and then you try to get close, and sometimes it works and sometimes it absolutely doesn't. And like, it's really gratifying when it does work, because these antelope have basically 10 power binocular vision, and there's 15-20 of them in a herd, and they're like ready to go at a second's notice. So if you can figure out a plan to get your slow a human body in close enough to shoot one of them. Like that's a really rare thing. So it's so much fun. Like antelope is like just in terms of the most fun that you can have. It's right up there with anything. So it's awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's.
When I was lucky enough to draw a tag, it was a lot of pressure. I realized that maybe buying one of the bigger calibers might not have been the greatest greatest decision. Antelope hunting with 300 Weatherby mag is a little bit overkill. But I was half expecting to have to reach out and poke something at 400 yards. But the way that our plans were coming together and our stalks were, the shot I took was, it couldn't have been more than 125 at these antelope, just coming over that ridge.
Yeah, it was. We've been chasing this group of antelope for quite a while, and they kept giving us the slip, and finally we were able to get down on the end of this ridge, right in front of where they were heading, and we got down to a vantage point right there, and there was a nice rock outcrop, and we got everything set up, and the buck, he was a big buck. Like that was a hell of an antelope for that country, especially. Like he was a good buck anywhere, but he was a hell of a buck for that country. And you in your mind didn't understand how quick you have to be. Like that was the problem that you ran into, is that you didn't understand how absolutely, like, you have to get ready, get set, go. Like there's no waiting for the perfect shot. The perfect shot doesn't exist, and if you're sitting around waiting, they're gonna run, and that's gonna be it. So and that's kind of how it happened. You shot and you missed, and then the herd was gone, and that was it. So it was a really good learning experience for you.
That's it after that.
That was it. Like that was our chance, and we couldn't spend any more time hunting antelope on that trip. So that was like the amount of time that we had, and it was time to hunt mule deer after that. And so that's the way it goes. Like, but moving forward, you won't have that same kind of misapprehension about what needs to happen and when and what kind of, like, you can't wait for the perfect shot. You have to make the perfect shot under less than ideal circumstances a lot of the time. So there's such a split second decision that has to happen on a situation like that. So it's always kind of touch and go. And with antelope especially, like mule deer are one thing, but antelope are a whole other thing. So it's awesome. It's so cool. And yes, 300 Weatherby is a little big for antelope, but it's one of those things, like, I don't want to have to chase an antelope for half a mile either. So, if you hit one in the right spot, it's going down right this second, and that's it. But it's all good. It's all good. And my dad really enjoyed his time.
Another thing with Wisconsin is a lot of times you can. Yep. Oh, for sure. And that's the thing with Wisconsin too, is a lot of times you're sitting in a tree and you can more or less see this deer coming for a little while, so you can kind of plan and get this, get your line of sight on it and everything else. And, but out there, they see you before you see them, and then all of a sudden you got to make a plan. So like you're saying, just get up and shoot is kind of what you got to do. But even just, again, going back to your dad, I mean, just the wealth of knowledge that he had for a beginner hunter from Montana, such as myself. I mean, obviously he, passed a lot of it on to you, and you're taking it and running with it, which is awesome. But I mean, even just sitting around a fire and just listening, either tell stories, or you tell him your own stories, and he, not at all in like a know-it-all type fashion, but I mean, he had some excellent advice and ways to actually be a successful hunter in that landscape.
Yeah, for sure.
So
there was nobody
perfect example of right. A perfect example of Rick, in a nutshell, is obviously I never been out to Montana before for my first time out there, and I had a pair of Wisconsin binoculars, from what we call Wisconsin binoculars. I don't have to see more than 125 yards or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, what kind of binoculars do you got?" I told him, and he's, "Oh, okay, whatever." And kind of just let it go, and just later on, he just goes onto his truck and he's like, "Oh, well, I got these here." I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever, and I'll give them back to you." "No, they're yours. Keep them. I know you'll be back."
Yep. No,
okay.
And this is a so guy generous.
That pulls a green aluminum trailer from state to state to state to state. I mean, I know I heard in the first episode, about money and things of that nature. And, obviously he was one to show you that money isn't everything. And if I was cold, he would have given me his jacket as well.
Yeah, certainly. No, I've literally seen him give someone the shirt off his back. Like he's just he was such a giving person, and like I find myself struggling with things like that. I find myself having a hard time just being nice to everybody, and he always was. He never had a bad thing to say about anybody. Just like, and I struggle with that, and so I always try to think about my dad when I get in situations like that, and even like I said in the first episode, when we got stuck and we had to walk out, like he wasn't cussing or anything. He was just disappointed in the situation, not mad at the situation. I would have been mad at the situation. Like I have a bit of a temper, and so I like to yell a lot and things of that nature. So I try to temper myself, just thinking about him as an example, because boy, I'm getting better, but there's definitely a period in my life there where just don't. Yeah, no, it's awesome, really fun. Like just teaching new people how to hunt, and it's it's completely different from everything that you have known about hunting, and it's not just sitting around waiting for something to happen. You go and you make something happen, and you understand the patterns that are going to be happening in the day. The deer generally go down to the creeks and the rivers at night in the hay fields and feed and water and whatever, and then head back up into the hills to bed down during the day. And so like when you realize that and you figure out geographically where you're at and like, okay, so the deer are going to be coming up through here. So we're going to, like, if we're on top of a ridge, what we like to do is start at the top of a big ridge in the morning and then work your way down, towards the low country, because the deer are going to be coming up. So you want to kind of cross paths with them as they're going up, you're coming down, and generally that's kind of how you time it. And then you do the reverse in the evening. So, they're coming down and you're going up. And so once you kind of understand that, like you understand kind of how things should go, and you start to see country that looks really deery, and my dad always had an eye for that, like in a way that I can't even come close to. And I was able to hunt with him for what did we have? We had 29 seasons together, and because I started going with him when I was 6, and then there was a few years in there when I was going to college in Wisconsin where I didn't make it home, but pretty much every other year I made it home, and got to go hunting with Dad. And it's one of those things too, like you don't understand how smart your parents are, and how like how just the wealth of knowledge that they have built up over a lifetime can really like mean something. And so I just remember, like, when I was in high school and even just a little bit outside of high school, like, there wasn't a damn thing that my dad could teach me. Like, I knew it all. And I lost a lot of time that I could have been hunting with him in that time period, because I had no interest in it at that point. And, obviously hindsight is 20/20, but and at the same time, like, as a young guy, you have to figure stuff out on your own anyway. But it's interesting to just see that kind of dynamic, like, now that he's not here, like, how it would be nice to still have him to talk to about things. And, just the encyclopedic knowledge that he has of the area that we go hunting, like, that's just lost. That's gone. That's gone. And it's too bad, but that's the way it works. You make the best of the situation and you move forward. So you can't dwell on the past. So, but it's interesting. Just kind of one of those, like,
to have all that when he was your age, so now it's your turn.
Yeah, for sure. And he was completely self-taught is the thing. Like, his dad was never around, and nobody taught him how to hunt. He just went out and did it, and completely figured out the game on his own. And that's pretty incredible. So, and it's cool. It's really neat. Like, just thinking back on how difficult his life was growing up like that, and where he grew up and under those circumstances, and for him to, he was never a success monetarily, but in terms of what he was able to accomplish as a hunter, I mean, there's nobody better when it comes to mule deer, for sure. I mean, there are people that have killed more deer and everything, and much bigger bucks, but at the end of the day, like, for a guy with no means to go and kill a buck every year for 64 consecutive years, that's an absolutely unprecedented feat. So that's something tremendous.
Your dad is not doing guided hunts. Your dad is
never
not traveling around the world. Your dad is not. Well, okay, so he didn't have any of the most expensive camo, if any camo. He probably hunted in flannel for the first beginning years.
Until Walmart started carrying camo, we didn't have camo. That's it.
Yep. Didn't have camo. So you hunt. Yep. So you hunt in flannel. You don't need that
Yep.
scent block stuff. You don't need the
No.
best rifle in the world. You
No.
got to have the drive and the knowledge
Yeah.
of the animal. And I mean, he's living proof of that. I mean, any millionaire can go and sure, I'll kill 60 deer, one every year or whatever, but that's because
Yep.
I'm paying you 15 to 20 grand to mount this trophy on my wall where, yeah, he might not have had, trophy bucks every single year, but I've seen his deer and, is I'd take any one of them.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
So
mean he did some stuff. He did go on some guided hunts, but he was the guide. So
right.
uh, he never paid to go on a guided hunt. He always got paid to
Very
go on a guided hunt.
true. Right. But living proof that being a simple man
Yeah.
can still get you success.
Yep. For sure. Yeah, we always had hand-me-down everything and hand-me-down rifles and hand-me-down optics and, Tasco scopes that were just pieces of absolute garbage. And
Yeah.
but you make it work. We always made it work. He always was able to. I remember one story. So this was when he was in the Air Force. He was stationed in Reno. He didn't own a rifle himself at that point, so he borrowed an old Enfield 30-06 from a buddy with iron sights, and he was able to scrounge up 3 bullets for it. That was all that he could come up with. And he went up into this area, never been there before, never like somebody was like, yeah, there's some national forests up here, and this was in Nevada. And so he went up, and he just knew what the deer are going to be doing no matter where he was. Like, so he walked up and went on this ridge, and he's working around on this big rim rock and jumped a big old buck off of the end of this point, and he missed with the first shot and then drilled him with the second shot and still had 1 round left over. And it was a big, like, probably 25, 26 inch wide 4x5 with a big cheater point on one side. And, just that's what we did. You always just make it work no matter what. And it's pretty crazy. So
Yep.
if you look close,
Mm-hmm.
let's see. Where are we at? Okay. Here we go. This picture right here, this is from when he was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
My wife recently took it and remastered it and then made prints for all of us. And it's really cool. Really cool. So
That's cool. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Quite a guy. Quite a guy.
Yeah,
And
it's
just
funny 'cause
like
my dad,
yeah.
my dad was kind of a mix between blue and white collar. He worked at a local company building transformers, and then went to school then and got degrees and worked up upper management and kind of did his whole thing, which is awesome. He grew up on a farm in north of Milwaukee, and so he had a little bit of hunting background. But then he married my mom, who's from the suburbs of Chicago, and did not understand this whole hunting thing at all. And it kind of took some convincing for for him to have, guns in the house and that sort of thing. But this is all, when I was young. And, but yeah, I went through hunter safety, right away as soon as I could. And we went out and we did all things. I got all hand-me-downs. I'm still hunting with the same Marlin 30-30.
Yep.
Same scope, same everything, because once you get them dialed in here in really Wisconsin, I mean, it's a great Wisconsin gun. Great,
Yeah.
125, 175 yards out. No problem. Good brush gun. But, yeah, kind of, he doesn't have the complete knowledge of everything. It's more of we go out and we sit and, we have our spots and kind of, hunt public, which is always a nightmare in Wisconsin. Opening day, and if you're not early, sun comes up and all you see is orange as far as you can see. It's kind of annoying. We're in Montana, hunting, public, and you don't see anybody. You might see a cow, which freaked me out actually the first time. Like, what the hell is a cow doing out here? This is crazy. But it's just a completely different world. But just the importance of the father figure, because I grew up in suburbs of Milwaukee, and without him, I probably would have been this city kid that and my wife's from the UP, so no matter what, I'm a city kid anyways. And
that's the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. For those that don't understand what the UP is, it's its own separate kind of world. It's a very unique place.
It is. It's part of Michigan, but it should be our 51st state, or Wisconsin should take it over. But that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, without that father figure, we went out. We did have some woods by our house that we went out, and it's just funny. Like, I remember as a kid, because I thought it was so cool, and so whenever we would get all dressed up in our camo, like head to toe camo, and we would no weapons, no anything. Like, we were just looking for. So we would walk out, and and this is obviously, like I said, suburbs of Milwaukee, where the deer are so concentrated that if you don't see a deer, you're doing something wrong. But he taught me all these things, like walking in his footsteps, or stopping when you get to a clearing, or like this, the little basic things. But he really brought the outdoors part of it to life for me, and that's everything that I grew up with. We go to central Wisconsin to hunt, and like I said, public land, and it was just you just kind of sit around and wait kind of game, which is still kind of is, but I gotta get him out to Montana so we can walk some miles and show him what hunting is really about.
Yeah, certainly.
I know he would enjoy that.
Yeah, certainly.
But he's in his mid 60s, so but I'm sure he can hack it.
Oh, for sure. My dad, up until he couldn't really get around that last year, but he was 76 when he killed his last deer, so no biggie. Your dad's got it, no problem.
He wanted to.
Yeah. Well,
your dad still had time to do that.
Yep, for sure. It was killing him that he couldn't get out and walk around at all, and like that last year he was so miserable, and it was tough to watch, because he ended up so he had a super rare form of leukemia, and when we got the diagnosis, they said he'd have probably 2 years to live before it was in a chronic state at that point, and then they said when it went to an acute state, it would be really quick, like within a month at that point. And, total time, you're looking at 2 years on the outside. So we had been preparing mentally and as much as anybody can for that situation. It's not something you can ever really prepare for, but, it's always kind of in the back of your mind, like, all right. So every time I'd get a phone call from my sister or something, like, that would be like, man, is this it? Is this going to be the thing? And, it lasted a long time. So we got the diagnosis in February, and then he ended up passing away in January, almost 2 years later to the day. So it was a really good diagnosis, but really bad for for us. But he did so good during that time, and he was always upbeat and just always making the best of whatever shitty situation life handed him. And it's just really tremendous to watch that. Like, it's really incredible to see that kind of willpower more than anything else. Like, just it's really neat to see what the human body is capable of when you put your mind to it. So no, it's crazy. But that last year he couldn't get out at all. He could barely walk, from the pickup to the tent, and that was tough. That was tough to watch. But he was still there. He was still in camp, and he still saw me, with my biggest buck ever, and like that's still that's something I'll always have. So it's just kind of a tough thing, but it was cool. It was really cool.
I wish I would have been there that last year.
Yeah.
But obviously with one kid and second kid coming, it's got to kind of understand that the hunting is gonna, especially out west, is gonna take is gonna be on the back burner for a little while. But who knows? It's gonna turn into an Anderson Ritzman thing out in the middle of nowhere, Montana, and get the kids involved and get everybody out there. For sure. A week, and I know the wife would love it too. She hunts the whitetail and the UP, so she has mentioned that she wouldn't mind coming out there. So
awesome, that would be awesome. My oldest sister Michelle hunts with us, and then Reggie's sister Elizabeth hunts with us, and the more the merrier. Like. I love to see women get involved in hunting. That's a really tremendous thing, and so the fact that exists already for you, that's very encouraging. So it's one of those things, like you make a whole thing out of it, and we go to hunting camp, and it's camp for a week, and this is what we're doing, and you plan all year to get out there and do the thing, and it's so kind of surreal when you're actually there and like, this is real, like this is actually happening. We've been talking about this and planning and spending all this money and buying all this gear, and now it's here. Like, that's so cool. Like, it's just really cool to see all your planning come to fruition, and then you're there, and like that's really cool. We need to get your father-in-law out there too. I think he would really have a good time. So.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He makes a pretty mean camp mishmash, so we'll have to have that out there too.
One of the most fun parts about hunting camp is the interesting food concoctions that we come up with, and Jerome is especially known for his
You got meat, you got potatoes, you got cream of mushroom. Just throw it all together.
Oh, do you have some hash left over from this morning? Sure, throw that in there too. Got some eggs? Why not? Throw some eggs in there.
Put some eggs in there too. There.
So the joke has always been
Yep.
like, ooh, what kind
point,
of
yep.
what kind of slip slop mishmash are we gonna have?
So it does not matter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hot food is the only thing that matters. It does not matter what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, slip slop mishmash is kind of the general term that we refer to that sort of cookery as. So, yeah. I don't know what this is,
cast iron skillet that you can find.
Yep. Hopefully cooking on the wood stove to get that nice woody flavor.
Yep.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, it's fun.
Stuff.
Yep. Yeah, you'll have to get your own. You'll have to get your own.
Graduated from that vinyl wall tent to a canvas one. So the canvas was
that was a big move.
Night and day difference.
Yeah, there's no comparison.
Everybody else had canvas, but we had to get the most expensive vinyl tent you could find, and completely destroyed it.
Well, it still works. Like, he still uses it. Only for warm weather, though.
Oh, sure. That makes sense.
Never for
like
cold.
The size of my house.
Basically, yeah. I mean, we all had our own room, so.
Right. Reggie pulled out his king size bed, and we're just like,
yep.
All right.
Yep. And unlike other camping experiences, we didn't all pile into the same bed, so.
Right. Camp,
yes.
stays
That's
at camp.
right. That's right. You got that right. It's a good time. Do you remember that first year we that last morning we drove up the river or down the river and right at daylight and we saw some deer?
Yeah, some deer, as in like 100, 200.
It was like 250 deer in about a 15-mile stretch.
A lot of deer.
It was insane. It was insane. So that's like now a thing that we do every year is like we take one morning and we drive down the river and boy. We had this last year. There's a big ranch that the main county road goes through, and there's absolutely no hunting whatsoever, which is part of the reason why there's so many deer there. But these guys, like one of these ranch guys, like was bird dogging us in his pickup right behind us, like stopping.
He followed us, pulled out, and followed us the whole.
Just ridiculous. It's so funny. Like, I get it. I mean, you don't want people to poach, and we're not interested in poaching, but there are a lot of unethical people out there, unfortunately, and you have to protect your resources. So, when the owner of the ranch is a very staunch anti-hunter, that's a resource that you have to really protect. So it's kind of a crazy situation, but not very far from there either is some good public land hunting, and those deer know exactly where the boundaries are, and they they're incredibly smart, and a a big muley buck is one of the toughest animals you're ever gonna hunt. They're so smart, and you're only gonna have a second, if that, and boy, there've been some frustrating years where you do everything right and it all happens the way it's supposed to, but you have 1/2 of 1 second and then they're gone, and they they know how to go in a way that you can't even comprehend. Like, they're just so fast and so agile, and the country is so rugged that you just can't even come close. You might as well be just standing still if you try to try to chase after them. But
Yeah, just stand still and see what happens.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And then you get the occasional, yeah, I think I'll try that shot, and it's way, way, way too far, and thank God it was way, way, way too far, because that one deer, like, if I'd have killed that deer, we would have spent the rest of the week trying to get him out, because that country was so unbelievably rugged that just impossible to get through. But I mean, we'd have had to cut him into 4 pieces probably,
Yeah,
and walked
that's the
out with.
thing. Like you're. Yeah, that's what you're saying is, you gotta, yeah, you could plan your shot, you could plan your stalk, you could plan everything, and if you execute it perfectly, you still got the haul out or drag out or whatever you feel like doing, and your truck is, I don't know, about 30 miles that way, so you better have some protein bars with you.
Yeah, yeah, it's the best plans. Even the best plans sometimes they're just it's not going to happen. So, and sometimes you get back in an area like that, and you see a giant buck, because that's generally the kind of country that those big bucks are looking for, is just the super, super rough stuff. So they got a quick getaway, and they can really, really just get out of Dodge real quick. And some of that country is so damn rough that, like, you better bring a frying pan, because that's that's pretty much the only way you're getting out of there
You're
with
gonna
the
be out
deer.
there a while.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
it's
no,
cool.
on our luck, it would have happened on the first night we were out, the first time I was out there, where it dropped 80 degrees. No one else,
Yeah,
we would have
exactly.
been out there trying to haul a deer out. We're like, oh, Christ. But, good thing that we came back empty-handed, I guess, on that day.
Yeah, definitely. Oh
Knowing
man.
our luck, that's probably what would have happened.
Yep. uh, so that first year that you went out, we hunted hard all week, and I mean, it was so cold. We had to take a couple days off there in the middle, basically, and go spend it at my brother's house and keep warm, because it was too cold to do anything. We couldn't heat the tent up enough to melt water. Like, it was impossible. Um, so hunting was very, very difficult that year, and um, so it got to the last day, and like man, this is it. I'm gonna shoot the first deer that we see, really. And um, so that morning we pull up, and right there on the skyline there was a herd of deer, and there was a giant 2-point in that herd. I mean, he was big. He was a big 2-point. I would have happily tagged him, but he was right on the skyline, and that's just not a shot that you can take. So there's too many people, too many houses around, and you just never shoot a skylined animal. That's just not a thing that we do. So we drove up the road a little bit, and got out, and we hoofed it up onto the top of that ridge, and that was some pretty rough going to get up that steep rocky hill. And then we get up on top, and you and me and Reggie and Elizabeth are, going pretty quick down to that ridge to hopefully get on those deer. And so I've got this Remington 700 25-06 that my dad gave me, and that thing is just an absolute tack driver of a rifle. I have it's a very custom rifle now, but it started out with very very humble beginnings when he gave it to me, and since then it's undertaken a radical facelift and whatnot. But
Yeah,
it's
I'd say so.
it's such
it's
a shooter.
Sweet. Don't get me wrong; it's a sweet gun, but it is a Matt Anderson rifle.
That's exactly. Yep. I'll bring it out in a future episode here. So, but so I had my rifle, and like with that thing, I've got a thumb hole laminated wood stock, and it's such a tack driver. Like offhand shooting, I can shoot better than most people can shoot with a rest. And I've known that rifle so well. I've owned it since I was 13, and I've killed lots and lots of deer and antelope and coyotes and a couple turkeys even with it. But so I know it. I know that gun inside and out. And so we're going down this ridge, and we see a couple white-tailed does jump out of some brush and take off, and we're like, oh, okay, there's deer. So we're trying to like see where the deer are, and Jerome and I kind of went down one ridge, and Reggie and Elizabeth went around another way to kind of spread out a little bit and see what we could see. And we get up to this ridge, and all of a sudden Jerome's like, there he is! And he points across this big canyon.
Oh, it's my fault. It's my fault.
Of course it is. There's no way I would have shot a deer like that otherwise.
Okay.
And so I see a deer, and I just throw up my rifle, and I shot, and he just dropped. I mean, just absolutely as fast as a deer can drop. I mean, he was dead instantly. And so we get over to him. Nah, he's bigger than that, but we get over to him, and I mean, it was just a dinky little fork, and definitely not the big 2-point that we were looking for, and whatever. But it was a perfect shot, and last day of season, like whatever. I filled my tag. I wasn't going to go that far and not fill my tag. So
on the table.
Yeah, and it doesn't get much better than a 2-point buck. Like that's about as good at eating as there is. So, it's just funny. Like you just see horns.
Like 5 years ago, and I still can't live that down.
You'll never live anything down, Jerome. That's how it works. You do something, and then that's the thing that is you. So that's fine. That's just
okay.
Just the way it works. It's okay, pal. Don't feel bad. Why don't you tell people about the coyote hunting on my brother's ranch?
Well, I never thought I was gonna die, like see my death until that point in my life. So coyote, surprisingly, are pretty darn difficult to shoot. Even just standing there, broadside, a little tough to range them and what have you. Plus, a lot of fur. You know, depending on the time of year. But so, are you talking about the prairie dogs? Prairie dogs?
Yeah.
All right. So Prairie Dog Town. So it was cold. It was another cold day. We're getting the car or truck, and we're kind of just driving around the ranch, kind of showing us, what's what. I usually see this over here. I see this over here. We saw a lot of different animals, and we come across this prairie dog town that's probably, I don't know. Well, what would you say? Is it like
It's
three
probably
quarters of a mile across?
Yeah, at least
About a mile
probably
across.
pushing a mile. Yeah.
So prairie dogs popping up all over the place, and obviously ranchers don't like them because, well, one, they carry diseases, and two, cows step in the holes and break their limbs and what have you. But we weren't there for prairie dogs. Obviously, there's coyote out there, and my goal was to shoot a couple coyotes in Montana at that point in time. And your brother goes, "There's a coyote." And I'm like, "All right, cool." We're just sitting in the truck, and all of a sudden he just floors it, and we're going like, I don't know, I could remember wrong. How fast were we going through the prairie dog town?
Probably 60 miles an hour.
60? I was going to say, like 60, 65, pushing 70 miles an hour through this prairie dog town. He has never gone this exact route. This isn't on a road. This isn't whatever. This is through just a prairie. We could have hit anything. We could have hit. There could have been a big ravine. There could have been a jump. We could have. Oh, he was hauling. So this coyote just takes off running. And obviously gaining on him. We're just, but this thing is just hoofing it. And he's running. And like, your brother pulls into like this Dukes of Hazzard slide. And it's like a crew cab Chevy where you got to open the passenger side first and then the back side will fold out. And so you whip open the door. I whip open the back door. Of course, I'm in the back seat for some reason. Grab the rifle up, and by that time the coyote just gets up and over. But man, we were laughing. That whole thing was. I thought I was gonna die. I thought I was gonna die, and like, it was awesome. And he's the whole thing. Like your adrenaline going like this over a coyote. And, but yeah, it was awesome.
Yep.
Can't say I've ever done that before, and that definitely wouldn't be legal in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was a situation because we were on a private ranch, like we were able to do that, but that's not something that we do on public land, of course. When he hit that slide, I could see, some big holes coming up, and if we'd have hit one of those holes with the tire, like, we would have rolled the truck. Like, that would have happened. Like, that's 100% would have happened. And it was like, holy shit, we're doing it. And then that was it.
That was like the first time I met your brother. Second time I met your brother. So I was like, I love this guy. This is awesome.
He's so crazy. And that's true. My brother Mike is pretty crazy.
And that was before I was married and had kids. So now I got to think of the world in a little bit different.
That kind of changes.
Don't kill me.
It kind of changes a lot of things. about how you live your life. That's awesome. No, it's awesome. It's
That
such
was
a fun
awesome.
place, and it's such a cool experience, especially for someone like yourself who grew up in basically suburban Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and lots of people, and not not having that understanding of real remoteness. And it's cool that you're able to come out every once in a while, and hopefully in a few years we can get you out again.
That will absolutely happen.
Yep, buddy. All right, we're gonna end it here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.